Hi there, welcome to 3Spoonies. We are your hosts, Claire, Karen, and Joe. This is episode number 26 on preparing for exams. Join us as we dive in.
At Grow Radio, we've launched and supported countless podcasts, and we'd love to do the same for you. Just hit record and we'll handle the rest. No editing stress, no technical faff, just a great podcast released exactly when you want. We've helped business owners, coaches, creatives, and community leaders turn their ideas into professional podcasts. Whether you're sharing industry insights, telling incredible stories, or growing your brand, we make the process simple and stress-free. Want to learn more? Our workshops and courses will guide you through everything from planning to promotion. So, if you're ready to bring your podcast to life, let's chat. Message us on social media or reach out to Gary Jones, the founder of Grow Radio. We'd love to help you get started.
I'm Claire from Sparkle's Gift Boutique.
I'm Karen from Pony Pony Pony.
And I'm Joe from Bright Cat Business Solutions.
And together we are 3Spoonies navigating our way through life and business with the Not Enough Spoons. Today we have a special guest with us, and we have Paul Flint from the Exam Slayer. Paul, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I'm a science teacher who now doesn't teach in a school anymore. I teach online science, and one of the things that I do is I help kids to pass their exams. So I recently, last year, published a book on how to pass your exams, basically exam techniques, revision techniques, and learning techniques that don't get taught in schools. And really, it's because my diary is completely full. I'm completely fully booked with a waiting list, and it means that the skills that I have are not getting out to enough people. So that's why I wrote the book, because it makes a huge difference. If you can pick up these skills, and I guarantee it, when people learn the skills that are in the book, their grades go up without fail. A lot of it's is about confidence. It's about understanding what exams are all about, and they're really just a game. And they don't matter as much as you think they do. And if you learn the techniques, it makes it so much easier. And it's all about focusing on what you want at the end. What is the end result? Where do you want to get to? Why are you doing the exams in the first place? As well as the techniques, just simple techniques, actually. And actually the simplest ones are the hardest to learn. So I love what I do. I love my one-to-one tutoring, but I'm only seeing a few people a year. I have 40 people on my books at the moment that I'm doing one-to-one, and that's my week fully booked. But I want to get out to the thousands who are missing out at school and not getting to where they want to be because they don't have the skills and they're not taught in school. And that's what the Exam Slayer is all about.
That's impressive. And it's a great way of putting out what you do more and how you do it. So I will pass over to Karen because she has lots for you.
So, first question. So, for people who maybe they've got exams coming up, they've possibly not done the prep they might have done before, what are some really valuable things they can start doing now to catch up?
Right. Okay. There's first off, there's how to approach the exam in the first place. One of the key things about exams, they are basically they're a game, right? You've got to look at them as a game. Exams don't really show how much you know. So you've got to play the exam game to get as many marks as possible out of that exam while you're in it. Some of the things to do with that are really simple to do, and they're actually the hardest for me to teach kids to do in the first place because it goes against what they've been taught, goes against what they think they should be doing. The first thing to do is to read through the whole paper first. Whatever it is, you read through the whole thing first without answering anything. Just read it through. There's a real brain development, neuroscience reason why you should do that. And it's like when you turn your computer on in the morning, right? If you turn the computer on and you start tapping on the keyboard, nothing's going to happen. And your brain is the same way. It's got to boot up to start with. So if you read through all the paper, all the questions, your brain actually starts to work on the questions in the background. I don't know if you've ever done crosswords at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you've done crosswords, then the thing about crosswords are you'll do them and you'll get as far as you can and you leave it, put it to one side, go and have a cup of tea, come back, and all of a sudden you get 5 of the solutions. And that's because your subconscious is working in the background. So if you read all the way through the paper first, then go back and do the easy questions. Now, there's always easy questions on the paper that you know are easy and you can just do them straight away. Well, that's banking marks in a short period of time, allowing your brain to work on the other bits. But it's counterintuitive for kids to do that. So it's a hard thing to learn. But if you master that one skill, it's worth at least 5 marks on every single exam. And that's just to start with. So it's approaching the exams in a different way. The next thing to do, as we're coming up to the exams in June now, it's focus on past papers. It's focus on past questions and focus on the answers more than the questions. Because if you look at the answers, you see, particularly in science, I mean, science is my subject, so I tend to focus on that. But when you look at science answers and you read through topics, the answers are always the same. But the questions are different because they've got to come up with different questions to get the same answers out of you. So if you focus on the answers and you focus on the topics, you'll find that you're writing the same things all of the time. And I know a lot of people don't like me saying that, but learn the answers. Because what really matters is the grade you get at the end so you can go to the next stage. You know, if you want to be a wonderful scientist in the future, you're not going to be a wonderful scientist until you get well past university. So the key thing is, where do you want to be? What's it all about? It's get those exam grades that you need to get to the next stage, whatever way it takes, really. So the key thing is past paper questions. There's lots of websites you can go to that you've got all the past papers. The exam boards themselves put out the past papers with the answers. And another thing to do is read the examiner's reports. I know that sounds really geeky, and why would I do that? But the examiners tell you what people are not doing in the exams. And we all do crazy stuff, you know, and it's things like reading the questions properly to start with, focusing on what you're writing to answer the question, and focusing on the marks for each question. So when you're practicing as well, one thing to do with practicing is if a question is 3 marks long, it's a 3-mark question, put 3 minutes on a timer and try and do it in 3 minutes. If you can work to a mark a minute for everything you're doing, it's a mark a minute. That's approximately what you get in an exam. So if it's a 90-minute exam, you're likely to have to get 90 marks. So it's worth practicing to a mark a minute. And you do that, and it'll actually give you extra time when you're finished, because you'll finish quickly, especially if you go and do the easy questions first.
I like that, because currently I'm studying for a marketing exam. And instead of sort of teaching like everything in a sort of this nebulous idea, they're teaching practical ways to do it and actually implement what they're being taught, but also how to spot the keywords in the questions that are being asked. So then we know what's being asked.
Yeah.
That is a big thing. And the first thing to do with that is slow down when you read a question. Read every word in the question. What is the keyword? What do they really want from the question? And kids are the worst for this, actually, because what they'll do is they'll read the question really quickly and think the question's about something, and then they'll write a load of good science down or whatever subject it is, but they're not answering the question. So their knowledge is great, but they're not focusing on the question. So it's really important to go to the question, and as soon as you write the answer, is that answer answering the question? Because go back to the question. Did I answer the question? It's very easy in an exam to your mind to slip and go off into all the wonderful stuff that you know and write it down, and it doesn't answer the question.
Yeah, that can also be an issue as well. A lot of schools will say underline the keywords, and that's fine. But if that means you miss that it's why rather than how at the beginning, that can trip you up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing. I mean, the book goes into a number of these things in terms of things like how a question is worded at the start. You know, things like describe, explain, compare, contrast, whatever it is at the beginning. That's an indicator of what you've actually got to do. And in exams, the ones where people lose the most marks are the 2 and 3 mark questions. It's very easy to get first mark on a 2 or 3 mark question. And then people tend to expand the same point to try and make it 3 mark, rather than looking for an extra point, looking for something. What's the next thing? What else? Which means that, so what? And one of the things I say to kids when they're answering a 2 mark or 3 mark question, you write that first thing down. The first thing will be right. It'll always be right. And then say to yourself, so what does that mean? So what does that mean? And keep going with that until you can't write something else. And if you say, so what to yourself, your brain has to answer that. And that's another thing as well. That's another thing when you're revising, or when you're wanting to know something, is to ask yourself the question out loud, because your brain can't ignore you. It's a neuroscience thing. You can't ignore yourself. So it makes you want to find out the answer if you're asking yourself a question.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It can sort of help you refocus, especially if sometimes you can get a bit lost in the question.
Yeah, and splitting it up as well. If you get to longer mark questions, you've got to split it up into chunks. A 6 mark question's got to be divided into 3 lots of 2. And it usually is. There's usually bits in it in terms of what they're asking you. You can put it down as little headings and answer it in little bits, and you're much more likely to get the answer. I mean, in science, it's fairly good. There's lots of techniques that you can use in that, in terms of the 6 mark questions that come up in science exams.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely a thing. What would you suggest for people who are looking to revise? Are there any key things they can do to help it actually go into their heads?
Yes, very much so. And that's understanding a little bit about the way the brain works. The brain works on pictures and stories, doesn't work on words. Things that make me laugh sometimes are the way teachers tell kids to go and write things in their own words. Well, the kids don't have their own words unless you're Lewis Carroll writing the Jabberwocky, where you come up with your own words like that. 'Twas brillig and the slithy tover, or all of that kind. That's your own words.
And these days, I'm pretty sure you get marked down for that.
Yeah.
It's not a word.
Oh, that's right. And it doesn't make sense to have to do that, But the way, if I say to you, the front door of your house, okay? I think about the front door of your house. None of you thought of the words, the front door of your house.
No.
You all had a picture in your head. You all had a picture in your head straight away. And it's how we remember stuff. How you remember everything. If you read a paragraph in a science book, or any book for that matter, you don't remember the words unless you have some, way out photographic memory where you can remember a page of words. You don't do that. You're remembering it in terms of pictures. It's always pictures. So whenever you do revision, it's all about creating pictures and diagrams. Write the keywords into the diagrams, and even better, create a story around it and create your own story around what it means, because that's how your brain works. It doesn't matter what it is. If I say elephant, you think of an elephant, the first thing that pops in your head, and it'll all be different, is a picture of an elephant. And then you'll think of other pictures of elephants, or the zoo, or you'll think of something in Africa, or whatever it is. It's your own thing about an elephant. And so you have to use that and we all love a story. I mean, that's the best. If you can create your own stories and create it into pictures, you can remember anything. And that's another key way of remembering stuff, is to create it. I see people going on about mind maps, creating spider diagrams. Well, all that is words and lines on a piece of paper. And to most kids, that doesn't do anything. It's not until you make it yourself and you create the pictures around the words that you start to remember the stuff. And any diagram or picture that you've personally drawn yourself, and it needs to put color in it, be outrageous with it, make it rude, do whatever you can with it. If you've drawn it yourself, you never forget it. And that's because that's the way the brain works. Because if you can link it to keywords, and the keywords come up in an exam, and you can remember the picture, you can draw the picture, you can draw the picture on the page, and you can remember everything about it. And
I
it
wish I
makes
knew you when I was doing my exams.
Mine was very much, if I don't know it now, I'll never know it.
Funny you say that. Every single parent who reads the book says the same thing. I wish I had this when I was doing my exams. And I actually myself wish I had this when I was doing my exams. But it works. And
Yeah, I never got it in. I always found it hard to do, like when they like revise and you have to write things down. It's like my brain doesn't take it in properly, and I really struggle with it. Like
This is
I
why
still like
learning
reading.
styles are poppycock. There's no
Well,
such thing
exactly.
as learning styles.
How long do you think your attention span is?
Mine's awful.
That's
I mean,
it.
it's got
Now
worse
or
as I'm
when I was a
older.
kid?
Yeah.
Any time. How long now, for example? Well, whichever's better. How long is your attention span?
Maybe 30 minutes.
No, like 8 minutes.
Oh, you're
Now,
lucky.
now it's about 3.
30 minutes is pushing it.
I
What
mean,
about
when I
you,
was a
Claire?
kid.
It depends on what I'm doing, but generally it could be like 3 or 4 minutes.
No, it's actually 6 seconds.
Oh wow!
Okay. Your attention's
No wonder.
what you're talking about is actually your time to stay on a task before you have to go and do something else.
Mm.
You have a 6 second attention span, and when I'm talking to you here, after 6 seconds, your brain's off somewhere else. It's going and thinking about something else. So you've got to work in 6 second segments actually, and that's what I teach kids to do as well.
Like Dungeons and Dragons
If
term.
if it takes longer than 6 seconds, your mind's gone. And there are techniques to do that. I put a few of them in the book. One of them is staying on focus in a lesson. It's a real simple technique that they can learn. It doesn't take long, and it makes a huge difference. One of the real problems these days is social media and video games and all of that. And kids' brains are actually going faster than they ever were. And so school becomes boring because it's not fast enough. So it's very difficult to keep them focused. But if they want to be focused, there's a simple technique to do, and that's when you are trying to take information in a lesson, is to listen to the person who's speaking and repeat the words back in your head as they're speaking it. So as I'm speaking, you say the words that I'm speaking back to yourself, and therefore you can follow and you stay in the moment rather than going off somewhere else. So the 6 seconds can become 9 seconds, which is a huge leap forward. And that's another technique that's a learning skill technique that really can help.
Yeah, it's so interesting once you learn more about the human brain. And it's like my friend Gothy managed to order a hotel in Germany based on a silly song I made up in year 8 and that had always stuck in her head. And so obviously that worked. And I found it really interesting that apparently a really good way to revise is to combine topics that haven't been put together before. So like if you've got to revise Spanish and geography, like try putting the geography concepts into Spanish and things, because it actually creates new pathways in your brain. And because there's that novelty, your brain goes, oh, this is new, this is different. And yeah, we're not taught to do that. We're taught to do this is this module, this is this topic, keep it over here, and there's this thing over there that's completely separate. And that's not how life functions, really, is it?
It's not how the brain functions either. No, linking things together is really a good way of learning more stuff. And you're absolutely right. If you can bring things, link them together, it works really well. I mean, it's fairly easy in science. There's a lot of links between biology and chemistry and physics that you can link stuff together and you can make it work that way. And with other subjects, just like you say, link a language to any subject. That's a really good way of doing stuff.
Can we take a quick little break for some spoonsful of loveliness, which is lots of great things from our sponsors?
Struggling to stay focused? Need a little motivation to get things done? Join us at 3Spoonies co-working and body doubling sessions. Whether you're tackling business tasks or just getting through daily life, we've got a space for you. Work quietly or chat with like-minded spoonies and stay accountable, all in a supportive, judgment-free environment. Come for the company, stay for the productivity. Let's get things done together. Maddie Alexander Grout knows what it's like to feel invisible. She spent years trying to get noticed in a world that wasn't built for people like her. That's why she created Invisible to Influential, a membership designed to give entrepreneurs and business owners the accountability, body doubling, social media growth and visibility strategy they need to be seen, heard and understood. Whether you struggle with consistency, knowing what to post, or just need a supportive space to show up and take action, this is the place for you. Ready to stop being overlooked and start getting noticed? Connect with Maddie on Instagram at Maddie Talks Money to find out more.
I've got a quick question for you. So obviously you've been a science teacher. What made you stop being a science teacher and do the one-on-one exam prep this way?
I was a science teacher and I love teaching science and I love messing around in the class and, making things explode in chemistry lessons and setting off fire alarms. That was me teaching. But I struggled because I'm on the autistic scale. I struggled with my being able to deal with kids who didn't want to learn. It was something that I struggled with. It's, anyone who wants to learn, it doesn't matter what level they are, I can make a huge difference to them because they want to learn. And that's the hard part, is trying to get kids who don't want to learn to want to learn. It's the biggest challenge, actually. So it was a big challenge for me. And I started private tutoring while I was a teacher. And I fell in love with it, really. And I absolutely loved it. And I got to the stage where I was private tutoring. I didn't have to go be a school teacher anymore. And other tutors that I know and I work with, they don't believe how much tutoring I do. I do 7 days a week tutoring and I absolutely love it.
Oh gosh.
That is a lot of tutoring.
It is. But I can't say no to someone to help them. If people say I really need help, I want to help them. And that's the key to it. And I've got kids who didn't like science who are now at Cambridge doing medicine.
Wow.
And it's so rewarding what I do. And last week, I had a young lady who started and she had no confidence at all, didn't like going to school at all. It took me 2 lessons and she went into school with confidence and her mum was over the moon. She's not seen her. She's in year 11 and hasn't seen her throughout her schooling go to school with confidence. And it wasn't, I didn't do anything special. I just showed her that she knew more than she thought and she could do it. And that's the key thing. We do tend to pretend. It's like we pretend not to know stuff. And kids are the same. And when you show them they know more than they actually do, and all you got to do is show them. When I'm teaching kids and they're answering questions, I never tell them the answers. I ask them questions so that they give me the answers. And then I say, well, you knew it then. Why did you tell me you didn't know it? And they suddenly realize that they know more than they thought they know. It makes a huge difference. And I love it so much. I don't know that I'll ever give it up. I'll be some 90-year-old man and I'll still be helping them do it. But no, and that's why I do this full time now.
It's kind of
Absolutely
taking what you
fair play to
do already, but just giving you more of a passion to do it on a one-to-one, and I suppose seeing people's enjoyment and how it's given them the focus.
Yeah, and it's rewarding for me because, I see someone's life turn around,
Mm.
And they get to where they want to be. I mean, last year I had someone who, she was doing her A-levels. She wanted to be a dentist. She really wanted to be a dentist, and she was getting C's and D's in her mocks. And I started working with her in terms of, and it came down to, because her teachers were saying, well, maybe you should think of some other course rather than dentistry. And it's like they do that all the time. The teachers do it all the time. And I see some teachers who do it not because they want to knock the kids down, really, but they themselves didn't have those high aspirations. So they don't try and think that the kids can do it. And I come at it a different way. I say, what do you really want? Do you really want to be a dentist? And there's not a problem. You've got to put the work in and you've got to really want to do it. And I'll show you exactly what to do. And then the first thing I do is show her that she knew more than she thought she did. So from there, it went forward. You're going to go up from there. And she's now at Liverpool doing dentistry.
Oh,
You know, and yeah, and it's great, and I love it. And yeah, and if I can bottle that up and give it to as many people as possible, and that's what this book is really the starting point for that, really. So there's lots of other things I want to do. I want to put it into a video course and 3 other books coming that I'm planning at the moment in terms of my special subjects, so the GCSE science subjects, and then the A-level biology and chemistry, which is what I do. And then I want to work with other people who understand what I'm doing and what I'm putting across on other subjects. So things like the maths and the English and all the other subjects, and do it in a similar way so that they're getting the kids to where they want to be, really.
Yeah, and it broadens it out to all subjects, not just to the science. It gives them a lot
Yeah,
more.
this book is a general thing. It's about exams in general. I mean, I've got a police officer who has read the book and passed their sergeant exams because of the techniques in the book. So it's not just for kids, although it's written for kids. But the techniques in it, they work for everybody.
What would you suggest for people who, if it's a longer exam, to build up their stamina? And some people aren't used to writing for hours, some people aren't used to concentrating for hours. Are there things they can do to sort of gradually work up towards it?
You can only break it down into smaller bits. So as far as I know, what you mean sort of essay type questions, or I think the essay type questions, you've got to break it into bits. You've got to simplify it into bits, and that takes practice. So you've got to practice it and see how you can split it up into bits. I mean, one of the things in one of the biology A levels was a 25-mark essay question, and it is all about splitting up into bits. Understanding what the question is to start with, and how you can break it down. So if there's 25 marks, and you know that 16 of the marks are on the content bit, and there's 3 lots of 3 for different things there, you've got to split it up into those bits to be able to work that exam. And it comes down to, as far as it's okay to take a break in an exam. It's okay to sit and stare up at the ceiling for 5 minutes. And that's have a reset. You can't get up and go for a coffee and come back again. But it's okay to stop. It's okay to take a break and stare at the ceiling and close your eyes. Really good idea. Close your eyes, and as if you're going to sleep. I mean, don't go to sleep, but like that. In fact, that is another learning technique as well, is that if you study something and then you go to sleep for a very short period of time, it goes from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. And it's the way the brain functions. So learning something and going to sleep is a really good way of it going into your long-term memory.
Yeah, that is a good point, actually. It's so valuable, isn't it? Oh gosh, my brain's gone blank. I'm going to ask a different question then. Yeah, for people who are pantsers rather than planners and find it really counterintuitive to plan their answers, how would you suggest they approach a longer question?
As far as planning is concerned, just the keywords. Focus on the keywords. So you'll have a question, whatever the question is, it'll bring to mind keywords. Write them down. Just write the keywords down. Don't try and answer anything, but write those keywords down. And then see if the keywords prompt other keywords, because they will link together. If you say a keyword like photosynthesis, for example, there'll be all sorts of things that pop into your head that you've learnt on photosynthesis. Write those down. Write the keywords down, and in the margin, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you scribble on that piece of paper or on the spare piece of paper that you got in front of you in the exam, because keywords trigger images, trigger stuff in your brain that you can then use within the question. So start with the keywords. And you'll find that, and this is another reason to read through it at the start, because that'll help prompt that open up the files, if you like, open up the files that are already in your brain. I mean, we see so much, we have so much information that comes into our brain that consciously we don't take any notice of, but subconsciously it all goes in, and it's a case of finding it and unlocking it.
Yeah, we used to use scents because obviously your sense of smell and memory are so closely linked. It used to be when we did English, we'd always have a vanilla scent. And obviously we checked everyone was okay with that. And when we did maths, we'd always have cranberry. So when they went into the exams, we made sure there was vanilla for English, cranberry for maths. And it helped their brains sort of go, oh, okay, this is cranberry. This is how we do maths, which sounds utterly bizarre, but it did seem to work. So
It's not
yeah.
bizarre at all, actually, because your sense of smell is the strongest link to your memory. You'll have if you might have been on holiday and you smelt a particular smell every day on holiday, might be the smell of the hotel or the smell of a bakery near where you were staying. And you smell something where else, and you're instantly transported back to that place. So smell is the strongest one, but in schools, it's not really something that goes on. The main senses are sight and sounds. And so sight and sounds can be really useful in revision. Sounds are really useful in revision. And working with a sound in the background at the right beat is really important. Baroque music is the right tempo. And if you have it on in the background, and actually you can now, if you Google study music, it must be music without lyrics. So you can find study music, and it's actually, Spotify or Apple Music study music, which is purely the right beat for your brain. And you have it in the background, so it's not too loud, so it's distracting, but it's on in the background and you do your studying, and it sets up a brainwave at the right frequency, which it makes it easier for you to learn stuff. And that links to your ability to learn.
I'm a huge fan of the lo-fi study beats.
They're very good. Yeah, you get and it just mustn't be distracting. That's the key thing. You've got to get it at the
I'll sing
level.
along.
Yeah, that would be exactly. No lyrics, can't have lyrics. Yeah. Yeah.
For any parents out there, it can seem like everything's changed, like there's numbers instead of letters, and they go the opposite way to O levels. Are there any resources or anywhere parents can look to be a bit more informed about what's going on and what things actually mean?
It's a tough one with the parents. The first thing I'm going to say is read the book because that'll help you. It'll help to know how to help your kids. The key thing as well with the kids is to let them find what they truly want to do. With kids, you as a parent, you have the best intentions for your kids. You want to help them. You want them to do really well. And actually, a lot of the time, you've got to let them find what they want to do. And that's the first step, actually. The first step in the book is why do they want to do well? What's the reward for the kids wanting to do well? So it's a case of encourage the kids to discover what it is they truly want. Why do they want to do well in the exams? And it can be any reason. It doesn't matter what it is. They don't like the kid next to them and they want to beat them. Perfectly fine reason. But it has to come from them. And it's often, I say, back off and let them be. Find out what they want. That's the hard part. And then encourage them to get what they want. And that's another key part of it, is being on side with what they want. A lot of parents try and get the kids to do what they think they should do. And with the best intentions, no one's going to do it. It doesn't work like that. In my experience anyway, with my kids. I'm very happy. My kids are great. They're independent. I have one that is my youngest one, who's just not bothered about anything at the moment. But you can't make them do it. If you start to try and make them do it, it doesn't work. It's really hard. It's got to come from them. So you've got to find their why, really. Help them find their why. That's the best thing. Why do they want to do it? help them find that. And then when they do find it, there's a really good technique that I use that works quite well, is to imagine the exams are finished. Imagine you're picking up the results in August, and you open up that piece of paper and you open up the envelope and you're there and you're in the moment and you've got the results you wanted. You are that person at that time. You've got the results. And now you're back to where you are now. What would the person who got those really good results tell you to do? And what would they tell you to do right now? And think about that and write it down. Write down what they would tell you to do. You already know what to do. And the kids know what to do. You know, if a person who wants an A star in biology or a 9 in biology, you know, what would they be doing now? The key thing, though, is discovering what it is they want to do. Why do they want to do it? And it's hard sometimes because kids don't know what they want to do at GCSE sometimes. Don't know what they want to do. So you've got to turn it around to, well, okay, what about having lots of choices at the end? You don't know what you want to do now, but wouldn't it be great to have as many choices as you possibly can? You know, and that's basically what you've got to do.
Yeah, that's a really valuable way of looking at it. I think it can be difficult for adults as well. Sometimes with professional exams, sometimes it's not something you want to do. It feels a bit thrust on you, or training and things. Is there something that adults can do if they feel forced into an exam they'd really rather not? Is there a way of them sort of being a bit more positive about it?
I think that again comes down to focusing on why you're doing it. You know, the exam itself is a means to an end. You know, it's like driving tests. You know, if you want to drive a car, you've got to pass the driving test and you've got to pass the theory. So, how important it is that you want to drive?
Mm.
So, with the professional exams, and I understand that, you know, you might find them incredibly boring, but you want to be the doctor or you want to be the lawyer. You know, you've got to pass them. Well, how much does it mean to be the lawyer? And it's about how much you've got to work to do that. Some people have to work harder than others, but it's all down to that desire. I mean, I don't know if you ever watched The Chase. Do you know The Chase?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a guy on there he's a barrister. Okay. He's a barrister and he has worked incredibly hard to be a barrister because he wanted to be a barrister. He wasn't gifted at school at all. You know, we tend to think of doctors and dentists and everything as gifted people. They're not. They don't have to be. Um, and he's not. And he's got the average level IQ, but he worked incredibly hard because that's what he really wanted to do. And I think that's what it comes down to in the end is what's the desire? What is your desire? And if you know what that is, then doing the exams, you're not focused on the exam, you're focused on the outcome at the end. What is the desire that you want?
Yeah. If there's anyone who's listening to this and maybe they've got an exam in a couple of days, is there anything useful people can do in those last couple of days on the run up to an exam?
In the last couple of days, don't try and cram anything. And if you do want to do something, do multiple choice questions. Multiple choice questions are brilliant for covering lots of a topic in a short space of time. And as long as you've got the answers to them, you need the answers so that you can double check what. And I mean, multiple choice questions have their own technique as well in terms of doing them. But you can cover a large range of a topic quite quickly with multiple choice questions, especially if you've only got a couple of days left. And then the last day, don't do anything. Rest your brain. You know, it's have a good meal, drink lots of water. Water's important. Hydration's really important, especially on the exam day. Make sure you've got everything in your pencil case. Your
Yes.
ruler, your calculator, it's all working well. That's important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all very true, and it's sort of something that does get forgotten. Claire and Joe, do you have any questions?
Nope, I had mine. Mine's done.
No, I was just kind of fascinated, and I've been really good. At no point have I shouted for science, and despite the fact I've really wanted to.
Okay, so that kind of rounds us up. Paul, do you have anything that you would like to plug or offer to our listeners?
Well, of course, I want to plug the book. Okay. It is available on my website, theexamslayer.com. And I guarantee if anybody follows all the steps in this, their grades will go up. Absolutely guarantee it.
I do love the cover of that book. I'm not going to lie. It would
It's
definitely make
giving
me want to pick it up and be like, oh, let's have a look.
it's giving me vintage D&D modules. That's just me though.
Love that. So thank you for joining us, 3Spoonies, on this episode, Preparing for Exams. We would love to know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for our weekly podcast and leave us a review. You can find us on social media, and we would love it if you would join us in the Business Success Network for Disabled Entrepreneurs Facebook group. If you like what we do, you can also buy us a coffee. All of the links from today will be in the show notes. We will see you next week for community questions. Have a great day and keep track of your spoons.